beautiful friends, it's Amanda here and I'm back with another build your own palette video. I'm taking a short hiatus from the Zodiac series, just wanted to switch it up a little bit, and so many people seem to enjoy my goldish palette, my ColourPop palette that was inspired by the Natasha Denona gold palette. So I decided to bring back this idea. A lot of people had suggested that I should recreate some discontinued palettes, things that were limited edition and no longer available, and the absolute first thing that came to my mind was this beloved holy grail of the makeup community. This is the Master Palette by Mario. This palette was released a few years ago from Anastasia Beverly Hills in collaboration with Makeup by Mario. I'm sure most of you guys know who he is. Mario is a superstar makeup artist, bestie to Kim K, and just all around makeup god, and his palette was so well received. I know there are a lot of people out there who have FOMO for not getting this palette, and I have to be honest with you, while it is a very muted, very neutral color palette, the shadow quality is insanely good. I mean, it's Anastasia, nobody's surprised by that. This is a really beautiful palette. I definitely believe that this one is worth all the hype that it's gotten, but it is no longer available, has not been for a couple years now. And if you're one of the people that missed out on this palette, or even if you have it and you're using yours up and have no way to replace it, I got your back. I have pretty much duped out this palette with my ColourPop shadows. The Master palette has 12 shades. The small ColourPop empty magnetic palettes have 12 shades, so it's pretty much perfect. Now, my recreation is not an exact to the T dupe, but it's pretty close. There are maybe 2 or 3 shades that either the finish is a little bit different or the shade is just the slightest bit different. But when you see these swatched out all together side by side, it's really, really, really close. Let's start off this video by taking a little peek at this Master palette. Like I said, there are 12 shades in here. While I do really, really love and enjoy this palette, I have to say my one gripe with this one is there's not a lot of mattes. This is very shimmer heavy. You guys know I'm not afraid of shimmery. I love shimmery neutral eyes. This definitely will give it to you, but it is lacking in mattes in my opinion. I do like more of a 50-50 split. I will say that a lot of these shimmers are quite satiny and subtle, so they can work like mattes. So I'm definitely not mad at it, but I did actually sub out some of these shimmery, satiny, shimmery shades for mattes in my recreated palette. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Now let's take a look at my inspired palette, recreation palette. I actually chose to include 5 mattes in here, partially because I just like more matte, and also the closest color matches that I could get were sometimes in a matte instead of a shimmer formula. It's all a give and take when you're doing these recreations. Here are some side-by-side swatches of each palette in its entirety. That way you can really see the overall feeling is very, very similar, even though there are some shades that aren't dead on exact shade and finish matches. These really are going to give you the exact same eye look, and I'm going to prove that later because I'm going to do a tutorial where I use the Master palette on one eye and my ColourPop palette on the other eye. Now's the fun part. We're going to do the side-by-side swatches. That way you can really get all the details, all the shade names, all the tea. Alright, for the top row of the Master palette, we have the first shade, Hollywood, and the ColourPop shade is Just in Time. Next is one of the shades where I chose to use a matte instead of a shimmer. The Master palette shade is called NYC, and the ColourPop shade is a very similar shade, but in a matte finish. It's Cloud 9. Next up, one of my favorites, Kim and Up and Atom. Then we have Muse and West Star, Marina and Unsupervised, and then Claudia and Goody Two Shoes. Claudia and Goody Two Shoes do not look similar in the pan at all. I think they look much more similar in swatch, applied to the skin or applied to the eye. So don't always be fooled by the appearance in the pan. This is definitely one of those cases. Now for the next round of swatches, we have Lula and Take the Lead. Isabel and Sea Stars, Violeta and Feathered, Fifth Avenue and 20 something. This green shade in the master palette called Bronx is a satiny shimmer. I chose to use the matte shade from ColourPop called Team Captain, mainly just because it was the best color match and I think it fit the best within the context of the whole palette. And lastly, Paris and Boxer. Now let's take a close-up look at the ColourPop palette. I'm gonna put all the shade names up here for you. This is a great time to pause and write down the shade names or take a screenshot if you wanna make a record of all of the shades in this palette. Now that you've seen all the swatches, all the shade names, let's jump into the eyeshadow tutorial. I will be using the Master Palette by Mario on one eye and my ColourPop recreation on the other eye, and then I will wrap up all my thoughts at the end. I'm gonna start off by prepping both of my eyes in the exact same way. First, putting down my favorite eye base, which is the MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly. Then setting that cream base with a little bit of powder. This is the MAC Next to Nothing powder. I like this because it gives me a nice smooth surface to work on, but it doesn't add too much heaviness to that lid before any shadows go down. Let's get into the eyeshadows. I'm starting with the Master Palette by Mario, first taking this beautiful, warm, toasty, orangey brown shade called Isabel. This is one of the mattes in the palette, and I'm just gonna start building that up into the crease area for that transition shade. This is quite pigmented, so it does not take much to get a really good color payoff. I'm also adding the shade Isabel along my lower lash line with a small flat detail type of brush. I'm going to be using all the same brushes for both eyes, just cleaning them off with my color switch, that way making it as even as possible. Now going into my ColourPop Recreation palette, I'm using the shade Sea Stars and doing the exact same thing, building that warmth right into the crease for my transition area. And I think it's pretty apparent from this application that these ColourPop shades are really quite pigmented, especially given the price difference. I only had to dip into these shadows once. Now I'm going to add a little depth to the outer part of the eye. On my Master Palette eye, I'm using the shade Violeta. This is a deep, warm matte brown, just with a small little fluffy detail brush, blending that onto the outer part of the eye just in little dotting motions. For my ColourPop eye, I'm using the shade Feathered to do the exact same thing. This shadow did take a little bit more work and a little bit more layering than the ABH counterpart shadow did, but the end result ends up looking really so shockingly similar. I'm going to blend out a little bit just using the same transition shade that I did for each eye, Isabel on the ABH side, and then the shade Sea Stars for my ColourPop eye, making sure we're getting everything really smooth and blended. Now I'm going to take the shade Kim. This is a beautiful warm shimmer shade, just with my finger dabbing that on across my entire eyelid. I'm going to be using the shade Up and Atom for my ColourPop eye, doing the exact same thing, using my finger to dab that right across the rest of my lid. I am going to add a little bit more depth, a little bit more shimmer. First with MUSE, I always like to apply my shimmers with my finger. I just find it easier to control and get good color payoff. And of course, the ColourPop shade that I'm using is called West Star. You know me, I always need a little bit of inner corner highlight, so I'm using this pale pink shimmer called Marina from the Master Palette on a small detail brush. And then from my ColourPop palette, I'm using the shade Unsupervised, applying those in the exact same way for a little pop of highlight there. Then I curled my lashes and added L'Oreal Lash Paradise Mascara. Take a look at the finished eye looks here. I think these look exactly the same. I would never be able to tell a difference. I actually wore this look in a few other videos and no one noticed, no one said anything. I love this recreation palette. At the end of the day, these two palettes are not exact dupes, but I think they're pretty darn close. I could walk down the street, I could go to the grocery store, and I don't think any person would notice that I'm wearing two different palettes on my eyes, especially two palettes that are so different in price. I do want to note here that some of these shades in my ColourPop recreation are not currently available. Just maybe a week or two ago, ColourPop did a BYOP sale and a bunch of the shades sold out. I know because I ordered some, and between the time that I ordered and my box arrived, some of the shades had completely sold out, and I had one missing from my order and they weren't able to replace it. So I do try to make my recreations with the best shades possible, but also from shades that are available currently. And who knows, by the time I edit this video, ColourPop will have possibly restocked them or discontinued them and then re-released them, or created like 20 new eyeshadow shades and launched them all in the next 5 hours. I really hope that you find these kind of videos helpful and inspiring. I have so much fun putting these together, and I actually just created a BYOP playlist on my channel so you can see all the different palettes I've put together. I love finding inspiration. I love putting together different color combinations, and you know I love ColourPop eyeshadow, so why not combine all of those things into a bunch of YouTube videos? If you enjoy this kind of thing, definitely let me know in the comments which palettes you want to see me do recreations or inspired by palettes next. And I promise I will get back to the Zodiac series. I just wanted to switch it up a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on my recreation. Do you have the master palette? Did you miss out on it? What do you think about these two palettes? How do you think they compare? I always love to hear what you guys think about things. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Bestie, oh. Did you see that? Wow, that's definitely going in the bloopers. What is a really shimmery, neutral, warm, delicious eye look? This has gotten away from me in a way I can't explain. Full, yes, I am wearing two different palettes on my eyes. Can you tell? I mean, I can't tell. I think they look pretty darn close to me. Anyway, can you just stay on task? No, I can't. Absolutely cannot. Sorry, that's not right. What? A very similar, hyperbole much? It's possible. Do you ever have one of those days where you just keep checking out your own highlight? That's me every day. Anyway, this palette is really, really cute. It has a 6-month expiration date. Sure, definitely gonna just throw this in the trash after 6 months. No. I probably shouldn't be encouraging bad habits like that, but do as I say, not as I do. I mean, I am living my basic, warm, shimmery eye dreams right now, and I don't care who knows it. So there. Okay. Alrighty then. Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.